In League of Legends, there are a lot of champions who perform much better in the lower ranks than in the higher elos, and vice versa. For example, Bel'Veth is a jungler who always has a way higher win rate in the higher elos because her kit is incredibly powerful if piloted optimally. However, because her skill ceiling is quite high, actually playing her to her limits is much harder for lower ranked players to do. So if you want to climb the fastest and you're anywhere between iron and gold, then Bel'Veth isn't going to be a top pick. However, if you're diamond or above, that's where she becomes really scary. So in today's video, we're going to be providing you guys with 5 of the best champions for 3 different elo brackets. We've split the ranks into one bracket called Low Elo, one called Medium Elo, and the other is High Elo. Iron, Bronze, and Silver will be the ranks in the Low Elo bracket. Gold, Plat, and Emerald will make up Medium Elo, and then any rank Diamond or above will be High Elo. The reason we grouped the ranks the way we did is because there usually isn't much disparity in champion performance for the way we've got it set up. For example, a champion who's good for Bronze is almost always going to be equally as strong in Silver, and then a champion who's good in Diamond is almost always going to be good in Challenger, so you get the point. But first, some hard truths. YouTube is built for the algorithm, not your LP. That means clickbait titles, junk food topics, and stretching simple tips for watch time. We're part of that system too, just like every guide and YouTube channel. And because every video is randomly surfaced to you as a singular guide and topic, advice often contradicts what you just watched. No context, no plan, more confusion. On our website at SkillCapped, however, we're free from all that, allowing us to focus on what actually matters. We teach in the most efficient way to really rank you up fast with the same premium editing and challenger level coaches you see here, just without the algorithm's hoops. Start with our essentials courses for every role, updated for season 15. These are meticulously planned step-by-step guides that build your fundamentals in the right order. Once you finish essentials, move into the advanced courses. Deep dive wave control, advanced mechanics, the proven bronze to diamond climb paths, and literal world record jungle clears for each jungler. All structured so lessons stack instead of contradict. While you follow these learning paths, we also release our popular challenger walkthroughs, new sessions every week showing how to abuse the best meta champs for your elo. Supported with an AMA section below each video, which we always respond to. We back it with a Climb 5 Divisions improvement guarantee while you're actively using SkillCapped, plus a 30-day refund change of mind policy on top of that, so there's literally no risk. Stop trying to mix and match random guides and start following a structured path far away from all the noise. Click the limited time discount link below to join SkillCapped today. So starting off with our low elo picks, a top lane champion who's become a phenomenal low elo pick for this season is Singed. In the past, Singed was always seen as a more high elo skewed pick because of his reliance on proxying to be effective. And although knowing how to proxy on Singed is still useful, you really don't need to in order to find amazing results with him. This is because Riot introduced a change earlier in the season to where if Singed Q poison is ticking on a minion when it drops to 0 health, you will automatically be granted the minion kill even if an enemy minion is the one who lands the killing blow. This has made Singed's laning phase so much better, and for the average player, it makes it way easier to achieve super high CS scores. In the lower elos, one of the main things that holds players back is their inability to farm efficiently, and with Singed Q doing all the work for you, it's way easier to obtain those high CS scores on him than most other top laners. Once you get out of lane with Singed, his mid-game teamfight doesn't require very much micromanagement at all, as you're just running around with all the movement speed from your passive, R, and Ghost, while being this durable disruptor who's really hard to focus. The 2 core items that you will want in every single game are Liandry's and Rylai's, while it's situationally tanky from then on out, and you'll want to run Conqueror for the Keystone Rune. A carry jungler that we really like for the lower elos right now is Jax. Jax got a buff to his R a few patches ago that has pushed him up in priority and makes him a stat check machine in a lot of meta matchups. The thing about Jax is that all of his damage is guaranteed unless the enemy dashes away from your E. So the majority of the time, there's no way for you to miss your damage with Jax, which means that if you get ahead early on, it's way more reliable for you to continue winning and spreading your lead. Master Yi and Viego are 2 of the most common junglers picked below Silver right now, and Jax destroys both of them because his E provides him with the dodge mechanic, which blocks auto attacks, and Master Yi and Viego both rely on autoing a ton in order to win out in fights. When you've got your Trinity Force and Sundered Sky completed, the skirmish strength of Jax goes through the roof. He's innately tanky due to the resist that he gets from R, and then he's just dealing so much consistent damage because of the passes from both items. For the rune page on Jax, it's always going to be lethal tempo, as it amps his extended fight power tremendously. For our low elo mid lane pick, even though this champion is significantly more popular as a top laner, he dominates way more as a mid laner in the lower ranks, and it's Garen. So Garen mid is a champ that our challenger mid laner Shori really advocates for low elo players to pick up, and he's got a few commentaries for the champ up on our website which will set you up really well. Garen almost always has the highest win rate for any mid lane champ in Bronze and Silver. So why is this? Well, Garen just absolutely destroys many of the melee mids that you see played so often in the lower elos. You'd think champs like Yasuo and Yone would be picked more in high elo due to the mechanical skill required to play them, but Yasuo is literally the most played mid laner in Silver. You also see a lot of Malzahar and Veigar in the lower ranks, and those mages just can't punish Garen at all in lane. A mage like Syndra or Hui can be more difficult for Garen to play into, but those champs just aren't played at a very high rate at all in the lower elos. So basically, Garen mid just annihilates melee mids, and then rarely has to worry about running into more difficult mage matchups, so he's such a reliable mid lane pick for low elo. The core build for Garen revolves around a Stridebreaker rush into Phantom Dancer second, and Spear of Shojin or Infinity Edge third, while Conqueror is the optimal Keystone rune. So there are two ADCs right now who are just miles better than everyone else for low elo. The first one is Misfortune, but we all know that, so instead of featuring her, the second ADC who we'll cover that's also well worth considering if you don't want to play MF is Smolder. Smolder's kit just works so well for the lower ranks because he has the stacking mechanic. The longer games last, the better it's going to be for Smolder, so the fact that low elo games last longer than high elo games gives Smolder an edge up in the lower ranks. On top of this, Smolder is pretty easy to play on a mechanical front, so you don't need a ton of games on him to start seeing results. The mini game of trying to farm as efficiently as possible and get as many Q stacks as you can will also just make you a better ADC player as a whole, because you should be putting high priority on achieving high CS scores regardless of what ADC you're playing. The best build for Smolder has you rushing Essence Reaver into Spear of Shojin or Infinity Edge second, and then Rapid Fire Cannon third, while Fleet Footwork is the Keystone rune. The best carry support that you can pull out for the lower ranks right now is Brand. Brand has seen a few really nice buffs this season, and most recently it was his AP ratios that were buffed. AP ratio buffs are always way more impactful for supports in the lower ranks because you need gold in order to take advantage of the buff, and with games lasting longer in low elo, you're guaranteed to generate more gold. Low elo games oftentimes just come down to who can win that 5v5 fight mid lane when everyone groups up together, and Brand is one of the best at winning those due to his AoE damage. Brand is also absolutely insane around Otacon because of the tight space, and if the entire enemy team is grouped together trying to take Otacon, then the value from Brand's R is as high as it's ever going to be. And even though Brand is more skill shot reliant, you're rushing Rylai's in every single game, which will help you land your skill shots way easier. If you lead a fight with your E or your R, then missing W should be impossible unless the enemy dashes away. Dark Harvest should be your Keystone rune over Comet because it's a stacking rune, and you're always going to get more value out of Dark Harvest in the lower elos with the longer games. So moving on to our selections for the medium elo bracket, which consist of the ranks Gold, Plat, and Emerald. For top lane, there is one champ who's insanely good for this bracket that you need to be spamming, and it's Malphite. So as we get into this elo bracket, matchups start mattering a bit more, and Malphite just clobbers so many of the meta champs you see in top lane. Aatrox, Jace, Jax, Aurelia, Fiora, and Yone are all champs that Malphite has such a good time against, and when you get into this medium elo bracket, you start seeing a lot more of them. In low elo, you really aren't seeing much Jace, Aurelia, or Fiora, while you are seeing some of Malphite's more difficult matchups like Mordekaiser, Garen, and Mundo. So Malphite actually finds a lot more success in this medium elo bracket, where many of the champs he hard counters are picked much more often. But the best part about Malphite is that even though he can win lane, it's never necessary for you to find success with him. Even if you fall behind in lane with Malphite, the champion's kit is always going to provide value, so he's one of the better champions with lesser resources. This just makes him such a consistent pick, and a champion that all players who are trying to climb out of the medium elo bracket should consider playing. For the build on Malphite, it's pure tank with a Sunfire or Hollow Radiance Rush, and then into items like Frozen Heart, Thornmail, or Canic Rookern. For the Keystone rune, Grasp is really strong in melee matchups like Yone, Aurelia, Fiora, or Jax, while Comet will work better against a spellcasting top laner like Aatrox or any ranged top lane pick. One of the best junglers that you can pick up for the medium elo bracket is Volibear. Often players just overcomplicate things in this elo bracket by picking more mechanically intensive junglers like Lee Sin, Graves, and Viego, while Volibear is the better champ and he's way easier to execute. Volibear's ganks are so easy to pull off compared to most other junglers, as you have the point and click stun. So as long as going into the gank it's a high percent play, there's really no way for you to mess it up due to a mechanical mishap. Since the majority of Volibear's damage is point and click, getting to your Trinity Force spike and forcing fights gives you a great win condition. Trinity Force provides Volibear with so much additional skirmish power, so if you've got that item completed while the enemy is still sitting on components, it's a huge window for you to be aggressive. And then when you get Flicker Blades, it becomes even more insane because Flicker Blades will reduce the cooldown of your abilities, which in turn will let you get more Trinity Force Spellblade procs off and just annihilate everyone in extended fights. So for as long as this champion does not get heavily nerfed, she will remain the best mid laner for the mid elo bracket, being Morgana. Morgana mid is such a cheat code for this elo because it's the sweet spot where you will be able to acquire perma priority in lane without being contested, and then you can more reliably play off your jungler and execute plays together better than in the lower ranks. Morgana mid is a little bit hard to just pure solo carry with due to lacking reliable burst threat, so playing her in low elo isn't quite as viable as playing her in the medium elo bracket and above. If you notice your jungler is posturing to invade the enemy's jungle, then throwing W down and clearing the wave so you can get the first move is really key. As long as you land your Q in a skirmish, then it's going to be a guaranteed kill every time when your jungler is with you, so you want to be playing alongside them and not trying to force plays on opposite sides of the map. You also really want to focus on objective timers with Morgana, because catch plays with Q when enemies walk into the fog of war to try and get vision is how you're going to find a lot of free kills. You never want to be showing up to an objective 10 seconds before it spawns. Be aware of timers, get your base in at least 1 minute before they spawn, and be on the map looking for catch plays from Brush. For Morgana's build, Blackfire Torch will be the rush every game, but Horizon Focus and Liandry's can be interchanged as second items. Our challenger mid laner Hector really likes Horizon Focus over Liandry's because of the haste it provides, and it allows Morgana to constantly be fishing for Qs in the mid game. And then important to note for the rune page is that you want to be taking precision secondary instead of domination. Cut down and haste are just a lot more valuable than cheap shot and ultimate hunter on Morgana mid. When it comes down to ADC for gold, plat, and emerald, there's really nobody better than Jinx right now. Jinx can struggle a bit more in the higher elos, where target selection will be really good in fights, and since Jinx lacks a gap closer, surviving an initial onslaught before she can proc her passive can be quite difficult. For the medium elo bracket though, you won't get punished as hard for that, and because games will be lasting longer than in high elo, you're more reliably going to be able to reach 2+ items, which is where Jinx really comes online. Jinx is even a completely fine pick for low elo as well, but she does require a higher degree of mechanical skill to pull off than our low elo pick being Smolder, so we definitely like the way we have things set up here. In the lower ranks, we also don't see nearly as much of Melio, Nami, or Karma played, which are 3 of Jinx's best synergies. When you get up to plat though, those 3 champs are up in the top 5 for play rate for support, so playing Jinx in medium elo and above just gives you a greater chance at playing with optimal support duos. For the build on Jinx, you will want to be rushing Yintal Wild Arrows into Infinity Edge second and Hurricane third, while Lethal Tempo is the best Keystone rune. The best support that you can pull out for the medium elo bracket right now is Melio. And just to note, if you guys want a full extensive breakdown on how to play Melio, we have a brand new guide that we just released last week that we will link in the top right corner of the screen that you can check out. So you can play Melio in the lower elos as well, but the reason we like him best for gold, plat, and emerald is because you need to be able to rely on your teammates in order to succeed with an enchanter. We like Brand for low elo because he can win games without needing his team to be competent at all, and in low elo, your teammates may not even know how to execute basic combos yet. When you get to the medium elo ranks, your teammates will have at the very least a basic understanding of the game, so pulling out an enchanter is much more viable. Melio is one of the best kits in the game at keeping one of his carries alive, and he's super easy to execute, so your skill expression is going to come from actually using your abilities on the correct teammate in fights. Don't tunnel into always trying to protect your ADC if they're behind the curve. If you have a fed bruiser on your team like Jax, then throwing your abilities on him and allowing him to thrive is going to be way more valuable than wasting your spells to try and keep a 0 and 5 ADC alive. The standard build for Melio is going to revolve around an Echoes of Helia Rush into Moonstone or Ardent Censer second, while Airy is the Keystone rune. So as we make our way into the high elo bracket now, starting off for top lane is going to be Fiora. So Fiora is one of those top lane champions where you need to be mechanically sound and you need to understand the game on a macro level in order to get the most out of her, so she performs way better in the higher ranks. Knowing how to split push is incredibly important to get the most out of Fiora, and if done correctly, she can be a devastating pick, but if not, then she's just a constant free kill in the side lane. We have a bunch of courses on our website that go into detail on how to split push optimally, so that'll really help you out if you want to pick up Fiora. There's also so much outplay potential in Fiora's kit due to her mobility and ability to block a key spell with her W. Using W at the correct time in a skirmish can single-handedly win you games, but it's a lot harder to use the correct moment than you may think. So the fact that you're going to need to focus a lot on the mechanical side of things when playing Fiora makes her way better suited for the higher ranks, where your macro knowledge will already be quite good and you've established habits so that more of your focus can go into how to optimally play out specific skirmishes. The build you should be taking on Fiora is going to consist of a Ravenous Hydra Rush into Trinity Force second, and then situationally Bruiser from then on out, while Press the Attack is the best Keystone rune. So the common theme among the champs in the high elo bracket is that they are all much more mechanically demanding, and for our jungle pick, we've got Bel'Veth. So as noted during the intro, Bel'Veth is one of those picks that completely dominates the higher elos, but is rather lackluster when in the hands of a lower ranked player. When you look at the stat lines for Bel'Veth, she's up around a 53% win rate in Diamond and above, but down at 49% in Bronze, so there's a big disparity in the champion's success depending on rank. There's so much outplay potential in Bel'Veth's kit due to the mobility from Q and damage reduction she gets from E. Most champs who have dashes just have one of them, so after it's used, their window of outplay is now over. But with Bel'Veth, you literally get 4 dashes, but can only use them in a specific direction, so it really adds a layer of skill expression that no other champ has. The optimal build for Bel'Veth is going to consist of a Kraken Slayer Rush into Stridebreaker second, while Wit's End and Death Stance are interchangeable third. And then for the Keystone rune, you'll want to take Conqueror along with Inspiration for secondaries. Playing champions who are more snowball reliant and who have really strong early games will always be more viable in the higher ranks than in low elo. And for our mid lane selection, we have a really strong early game pick being LeBlanc. So in the higher ranks, it's just a fact that games don't last as long, which means scaling picks see a drop off in power while more early game dominant picks thrive more. Not only is LeBlanc one of the best early game mid laners, but she's also just one of the best mid lane champs in general right now due to repeated buffs this season, so she's a no-brainer pickup for mid lane if you are Diamond or above. When you get up to high elo, playing a mid laner like LeBlanc who can generate priority in a lot of her matchups goes a long way. The 2v2 skirmish of LeBlanc is incredible because she can nearly 100-0 a squishy champion by herself at level 6, so if you have your jungler with you, then whoever you focus is a free kill every time. LeBlanc is also at her best when paired with a more aggressive early game jungler, and you see those picked much more in high elo. The core build for LeBlanc consists of a Luden's Rush into Shadowflame 2nd and Rabadon's 3rd, while Electrocute slots in for the Keystone Rune. Arguably the most devastating ADC for the higher elos when in the hands of a skilled player is Draven. Draven has always been a more high elo skewed pick because he needs a competent support in order to succeed, and he needs to win early game to be most effective. If you lose lane with Draven and the enemy team has a Jinx or a Twitch, then it's going to be really hard for you to out-impact them even if you reach max build because he doesn't have that same kind of pure teamfight power. Staying ahead of the curve is so important on Draven, so you need to be mechanically sound, and it's really helpful if you have a support who knows what they're doing to set you up for kills in lane. Playing Draven in low elo where your support may just sit back and not apply any pressure at all will just have you tilting out of your mind. So for your mental well-being, staying away from Draven in the lower ranks is recommended. The best build for Draven revolves around a Bloodthirster Rush into Infinity Edge or the Collector 2nd. IE is ideal as a second purchase if you get a base timer in the mid game where you have enough for a pickaxe or a BF sword. If not, and you base with something like 800 gold, then just grabbing a few long swords and going toward the Collector is a fine alternative. And then for the rune page is going to be Lethal Tempo for the Keystone Rune with Sorcery for secondaries. A support that our challenger support main Rhino really likes and who thrives a ton in the higher elos is Elise. What really sets Elise apart from most other supports and makes her exceptionally strong for the higher elos is her ability to execute early game dives better than anyone else. In the lower elos, this doesn't really come into play as much because players are just way less likely to be able to execute dives optimally. You could see a potential dive angle that you know will work, but your ADC just sits back and doesn't even follow up, whereas in the higher elos, players will be able to recognize when a dive play is optimal and they'll follow up much more consistently. So it's not even so much the fact that Elise herself is difficult to play, but more so the fact that you need competent teammates in order to get the most out of her. For the build on Elise, it's all out offensive with Bloodsong as the item upgrade followed by Storm Surge and Shadow Flame, while Electrocute is the Keystone Rune. If you're looking to pick up Elise and want to fast track your success on her, our challenger support Rhino has 4 full game commentaries up on our website that will be more than enough to get you on the right path to success. Alright guys, one last thing, our rank up guarantee is insane. It's like signing up for the gym and getting a refund if you don't get ripped. That's how confident we are in SkillCapped. We obsess over making the best guides with top players, rigorous testing, and top tier video editing to make your climb easy. If you're ready to level up, visit SkillCapped.com and see the difference. So that's going to be all for our latest update on the best champions for every single elo. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.